Hey everyone, welcome back to Chasing Success Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Wright, and we have a special guest here, Brookelyn Riley of Brookelyn Riley Photography. So, hey Brookelyn, welcome to the show.
Hey Zach, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so I'm excited to talk to you because we've known each other for a little while now. Full disclosure, Brookelyn was our photographer at the wedding. She did an amazing job. So I wanted to get her onto the podcast because I know you've been doing this for 11 years. Is that right?
11 years.
Okay. So maybe just start with a little bit of your background on what got you into this field and what you kind of focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. So 11 years ago, I was 18, about to turn 19. I just finished my freshman year of college, and I was really interested in just any kind of creative outlet. It wasn't necessarily photography, but any kind of creative outlet. And, you know, you're in school and you're studying and you just need some kind of, way to get out your creative energy. And for me, that was photography. I was gifted a DSLR camera, a professional camera for high school graduation. And so I would get out on campus and take photos of things. And after freshman year, I came home for summer, and it was one of the years that gas prices were crazy, kind of like now. And so my dad was like, there's no point in you getting a job. My parents lived out in the country. They're like, there's no point in you getting a job and then driving 20 minutes into town to just go make minimum wage somewhere. So you need to just kind of sit at home, enjoy your summer, take a breather. And as great as that is for a parent to tell their child, I'm not a sit still kind of person. So I put up on Facebook that I was going to do prom hair and makeup for local high schools. So I did that, and while I was doing the hair and makeup, I'd bring my camera so that I could get good photos of their hair and makeup. And so, of course, afterwards, I'd post it to Facebook because that was the main platform at the time. And then people started messaging me, asking me, oh, you're taking photos. And I'm like, well, not really, but like I can, and I like doing it. So if you'd let me practice, I'd love that. So I had, a full summer's worth of free sessions and just anything, maternity, seniors, Sweet 16, anything I could get my hands on, my dog, anything I could take photos of, I did. And I became, kind of obsessed with it. And I got back to school in the fall, and I was, trying to figure out where, my newfound passion kind of would fit into my life with school. And I just kind of continued to build it out. I would pick weekends that I'd go back home. I was at UNC Chapel Hill, so I was like 2 hours from home. And so I'd pick weekends that I'd come back to Concord. And then I also kind of started building out my business there. And I started doing grad sessions on campus and families in the Raleigh-Durham area. And so I kind of built it out across the state, not on purpose, but it did work out that way, which is kind of cool. And I started shooting weddings about a year after that, and it just kind of transformed from there. It was always a side business in my head. I never meant to take it full time. And then about 3 years, hold that thought. So I graduated college, and by that point I have a really successful business. But, I just got my degree in political science and public relations, and my parents are like, hello, you just got your degree. You're not going to start your own business. Like, you just for this, we just paid for this. You're going to get, a job in the field. So, and I wanted to. I'm glad that I did that. So I did PR for Belk corporate office. I was still doing photography on the side. So I had my 9-to-5 corporate job as soon as I got off work. I mean, I was changing in the car, and I was hitting Charlotte for the local parks to take photos. I was shooting weddings on the weekends. I was shooting about 20 weddings a year, which is kind of crazy considering I was working.
Yeah.
I was, sneaking in the break room to talk to brides on the phone. I was, anytime I'd have a bathroom break, I'm like answering my business emails. So I did that for as long as I could. And then finally it was just laid on my heart to go full time. And I did that 6 years ago, I believe, 5 or 6 years ago. And I've just kind of hit the ground running ever since. So now here I am. I do wedding photography, seniors, family, lifestyle, pretty much anything people related. And I totally love it. So here we are.
That's cool. Because I don't know if you watch or listen to How I Built This by Guy Raz. He talks about all these people who have created their business, and they always start off with an idea. Mm-hmm. But what I've noticed is almost every single person that is on that show, the idea that they started with isn't what they ended up doing. And it was the same thing with you with makeup and hair, and then it transitioned to photography. So it sounded like you always had a passion for photography, or is that true?
No, that's definitely true. My family does not have a passion for that. So I was the person in our family that was the storyteller, the documenter. Like, I can remember being a little kid and like at Tweetsie Railroad, and my parents were wanting to take photos, and I had one of those crankable film cameras, and my mom's like, stop wasting the film. We don't want these photos from Tweetsie. I was taking pictures of Calamity James and whatever, all the people at Tweetsie. And so I just had like this love for documenting things and storytelling and keeping memories, but I didn't recognize that at the time, but now I totally see it. And that's really why I got the camera that I got for graduation, is I wanted nice photos when our family went on vacation, and my brother played sports. I wanted to take photos of his sports teams, and I did that, but now I pretty much, it's so funny. I take photos of everybody else's families, and then my own family, they're like, hello, can we get Christmas card photos? So it's funny, but that was really the origination, was to just kind of have a camera to document things for my personal journey. And then now I document so many things. So
that's kind of how it happens, right? Because I do OKRs and OKR programs, and I actually do that for my own business. But many cases, like business consultants and that kind of stuff, they won't do what they teach other companies to do because they don't take the time to do it themselves. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, so whenever you started photography, you mentioned that you went from a corporate position to actually full time. Yep. What was going through your mind, and I know you said that you felt that pull to go all the way, but what was in the moment? What were you thinking as you were transitioning from corporate to doing your own thing?
It was very scary because I'm not much of a risk taker. I like to try to play it as safe as I can. And so I really I kept telling myself, I'm going to do both jobs for as long as I can. I loved my job at Belk and PR, and I loved my people that I worked with there, but nothing beats being able to, work your own business and put the blood, sweat, and tears into your own business. And I can remember just like sitting there and looking outside and thinking, okay, a couple more hours till I get off, and then I can finally be outside and I can finally go do this. And just thinking about all of I thought I was going to have time freedom, and I do and I don't. I worked a lot more hours than I thought I would be working, but I prayed a lot about it, and I built my business, my side business, to the point that if I didn't get one more customer or take on one more thing, that I was happy with my salary and I was happy with what I was doing. And I made sure it was at that point before I let go of my other job. And really, probably I was past that point. But I just wanted to make sure, So it was about 3 years that I did both, and I was feeling so burnt out. I knew something had to change. And looking at the two, there was just no comparison. And to be completely candid, I was making double, almost triple what I was making at my 9-to-5 job. And I'm thinking I could go do a photo shoot and make what I made in a day. And I just couldn't justify it. And I told them that as I was leaving, I love this, but I can't, it doesn't make sense. And of course, there's a lot of risk that's involved too. So I was taking that risk, but it is the best risk that I've ever taken. I am so happy that I did what I did.
Yeah, and I think there's a misconception whenever we hear about people taking the leap and starting their own thing. Like even with Bill Gates, like he dropped out of Harvard, or he actually took a sabbatical from Harvard. He didn't drop out. He could have always went back. Same thing with a lot of people that we talk about, that we glorify. They kind of have a way to go back. But so whenever you did take the leap, it sounded like you already had clientele and all that kind of stuff. How did you go into getting that, or those clientele that you had? I mean, did it start with friends and family and then it kind of catapulted from there?
Yeah, pretty much. It started with friends and family, or like I said, there was people that reached out that saw my hair and makeup photos, the photos that I'd taken from that, and they would reach out and say, hey, I'm having a baby. Would you be willing to take photos of my baby? Or how much you charge? And initially I would say, I don't feel comfortable charging right now. I just want practice. So if you don't mind just giving me a couple hours of your time, I'll give you all the images. And, I get a lot of businesses that ask me how I started and they don't like that answer. But that's what worked for me. And, I don't regret it. And I think that was what build a nice clientele, and a lot of those people still come back to me, and now they are paying customers, and they've been with me since day one, which I like. That is the ultimate compliment, to get to see things come full circle. But a lot were friends and family, and then those friends and family have their own friends and family, and it just expanded from there.
Yeah, like we follow each other on Facebook and we're and Instagram, and we're kind of from the same town. And I always see my friends who are like working with you. I mean, McClatt, he's one of them. I mean, I think you did like his wedding, his baby pictures, and
I've taken her photos since college. Like I did her graduation photos at Chapel Hill, and then from there, I've probably done 10 or more different shoots, including their wedding, their maternity. Like they're one of those that I've just been involved in, like every little milestone, and it's just awesome. Now we're like all old and married and they're having kids and they're on their second baby, but it's so crazy. That started with one graduation shoot before she and Philip were ever dating, I believe. So it's crazy.
Yeah. And there's two things I wanted to call out. One is a lot of people are on, so I work for a SaaS company, and that's what my company is as well, software as a service. And so it's basically a subscription fee. So you're paying a month on month, or you're paying yearly, and it just renews. Obviously, if they don't want to continue, then they won't renew. But with yours, it's in a sense similar, because you get them at senior pictures, then you might follow them until they get to their wedding, or maybe family photos, and then on top of that, you get baby photos, and it's a continuation, and it's kind of cool to see them grow. I'm assuming to see them grow from where they started to where they are now, and the continuation. The other piece is, you mentioned that a lot of businesses don't like the advice that you gave as far as starting for free. I disagree with that. I think 100% you should, because there's a lot of things in SaaS, we call it product market fit. And that's what you're trying to accomplish with working with people for free. And so you're able to get that feedback from those people, but also you're able to get testimonials, and then that testimonial will translate into more deals, hopefully, if you're good at what you do. But no, I think that's 100% good. Like, in fact, the first business coaching client that I had was my dad's company, and I still work with him today. So, but I worked for him for free for the longest time. Now I get paid. But, yeah, so I think that's great advice. But you mentioned also that you're working more than you were as a corporate employee. So one of the questions I want to ask you was, how do you have that work-life balance, especially for a photographer? Because you mentioned you have weddings, and typically those aren't during the week. So most of your weekends are taken up, and then I think you do evening shoots a lot too. So how do you have that balance where you're not burned out and you still enjoy what you do?
So I'm constantly trying to figure that out. I would not say that I'm a master of it. I'm always out of proportion with the work-life balance. But this year, I really put a focus on it and made it a priority. And there's been some learning curves, because I've had to set more business boundaries this year than I ever have before. But, last year I got married. You're probably going through this too. It puts things into perspective. Like, when I was single, I would take on stuff every minute of the day. I didn't care. I didn't have a lot of plans going on. Why not work? And I had that mentality of, let's just work every free minute. Well, now that I'm married and, starting a family is in the near future, top of mind. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I, put some boundaries into play and have a little bit more time freedom, because that's ultimately why I started this business. So This year I built in times for vacation, and I just got back from vacation, and I touched on this yesterday. I put a story up on Instagram. We went to France. We were gone for 8 days, and we didn't have phone service a lot of the time, which is great because it literally takes me not having phone service to stay off of my phone. I cannot stay off of it unless I literally don't have service. I have to go off the grid.
I understand.
It's just hard. You're always scrolling, or you see the email pop up, and if I see the email, I cannot ignore it. It's in my head until I answer it back. So it's hard for me to unplug, and especially, owning your own business, there are no hours. I have brides that message me at 9:00 at night. I have people that message me in the middle of the night because they're feeding their baby. They message me whenever they can, and I've been trying to do better at setting business hours, and then also, taking the time to get away, because I came back raring to go yesterday. Yesterday was my first real day back in the office, and I was so excited, and I had a bunch of different things that I had the idea for that I never would have had 2 weeks ago because I was approaching that burnout. And having that vacation to look forward to was so important. So taking time, I think especially in a creative field or a field that you're dealing with people, taking time to just kind of like unplug and recenter and, think just time to unplug so that then all these business ideas can pop into your head when they're supposed to and not because you're forcing it. So I know that's kind of a long answer, but just trying to not work every day of the week and trying to take designated time to unplug has been, super important for me, and trying to work smarter and not harder, and take on a little bit less. And that way the things that I am involved in are more impactful, and I have more time, more quality time for my clients.
Yeah. I like that you said that you scheduled out your vacations, because I'm a workaholic. I'll tell anybody that I speak to, and that does help, because whenever we had our honeymoon, it was planned, right? I knew that it was coming at the beginning of the week of the year, and by doing that and having that planned, I was able to get the things done that I needed to, and then understand that some of these things are going to have to wait until after. And it was kind of the same situation. We didn't have good cell service, so it was lucky. I know Caitlin was happy about that. But it is tough though. Whenever you, that's kind of how we got to this point. Was you mentioned you put something on your story, and I DM'd you, and I was like, hey, let's get you on and talk about this, because this whole podcast is, like I mentioned to you before, is about how do you reach success without sacrificing your happiness. And I think it is tough, and it is probably getting even tougher with the type of outlets that we have. We're always online, and we're always reachable. So is there a time that you turn off? I know you said some moms will reach out to you after they put their kid down. Is there boundary hours that you set for yourself, not before 7 a.m. and not after 10 p.m. or anything like that?
So I shoot a lot of nights and weekends, or evenings and weekends. And then at night is where I really sit down and can just get kind of cozied up and settle into the back end of my business. That's when I do a lot of my editing. I'm a night owl, so I like to stay up really late. And so I used to answer emails midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., because I'm like, well, I'm up, so I'll answer them. I still do that. However, I will schedule send it to where it sends at 8 a.m. So I'm still answering it back at the time that's convenient for me, but I don't want people to think that they can text me at all hours, because that's what was happening. I was answering these people back at those times, and so they thought, oh, she's up, and I would post a lot about being up, and I don't do that anymore, because even though I'm up, that's my time. That's my me time that I can be undistracted, and that's why I get stuff done, is because I don't have emails and texts and stuff coming through. So I still answer my emails then a lot of times, but I'll schedule send it. And that way it's not like, oh, well, she's available 24 hours. And, a lot of times, because I have to stay up until 3 or 4 a.m. editing, I'm not going to be up at 7 a.m. I like to sleep in. So mornings are kind of my times to wake up slow, not set an alarm, enjoy that part of my day, get my cup of coffee, and then kind of settle in and do some back end stuff before it's time to shoot. So it took me some time to realize that, especially coming from the 9-to-5 world. I thought I needed to be working 9 to 5, and that's just not how my business works. A lot of my stuff doesn't work in those times. And that's perfectly fine if I want to go do a grocery run at 11 a.m. on a Monday, because that evening I'm going to be working. So, I might not get done shooting until, 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. or whatever. So the store is closed or whatever. So I've learned to just kind of do my chores and do my stuff whenever I do have those pockets of free time, and not feel so, boxed into, I have to be doing this at this time. Like, every day is different, and every day is different in my business. So, but the schedule sending thing has been a huge hack. I actually learned that from my wedding photographer. She taught me that, and I'm like, okay, taking notes, because that's huge. So.
No, that's cool, because you don't think about that, because whenever you do choose to schedule send, the thing that I heard whenever you said that was, you're like, because whenever you would respond, they might respond back, and then you have a certain expectation to respond right back because you just responded. So those types of boundaries are very important for entrepreneurs, or really anybody. So cool. So, like, some of the other things that I try to bring into play in this podcast is what success looks like to you. So let me back up first, because right now it's you, like, you're a solopreneur, but then your husband also helps as the second shooter, right? Oh, that's awesome. Exactly. So it's all in the family. That's cool. So, but with that, you have to have those certain boundaries, or I'm assuming you would burn out. Have you been close to burn out? Yeah. Like,
I was almost there. I was just almost there. And then, like I said, I had a vacation, and then now I'm like, everything's great. But I can feel whenever I'm approaching that. Coming off of spring is super busy for me, and fall is super busy for me. So having a little bit of time in between those busy seasons, even if it's a couple days, a long weekend, it's not always a trip to France, but having some designated time that I know that I can breathe and just not have anything I have to do is so helpful to me. I'm also trying this year to keep at least one weekend off a month. So there have been years that I look at my calendar and I'm like, oops, I'm booked every weekend for 2 months. And that's just not helpful for anybody. It's, it's hard to keep ideas fresh. It's hard to stay creative. It's hard to stay inspired whenever you know that you have to crank, this amount of stuff out, and then you have to turn around and edit it all, and it's all due at the same time. So I lowered my number of weddings that I take on per year. I used to shoot 30, and then now I've scaled back to like 20 to 25, because that just feels a lot more comfortable. And then it does leave a little bit of wiggle room to do other things. So, and a lot of times, like I said, I recently decided to open up a couple mini sessions. I wouldn't do that if I was in a state of burnout. I wouldn't have the capacity to do that. And so giving a little bit of wiggle room, I mean, a lot of times I am going to turn around and put it back into my business, but if I don't leave that wiggle room and I feel strapped, then I'm just going to be kind of operating in that burnout, just check it off the list mode. And that's not fun, especially in a creative field.
And it gives you an opportunity to add certain things that are a little bit different than what you're kind of doing consistently. But one of the things that I didn't ask that I wish I would have earlier is, whenever you mention not responding to people, I'm sure that there has to be like a certain type of client expectation that you set there. But then in addition, you said 1 week in a month you're trying to take off. So does that mean that you're reducing or saying no to some people? And how do you handle that?
Yes, it does. And I'm so bad at doing that. So the things that I say on here, this is like my goal. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily doing it. I'm trying to do it. But yeah, I want to say no to things that might not be in line with what I'm doing, or maybe the things that I don't like to shoot as much, or, clients that I don't feel like are going to be a good fit, because, ultimately not everything is the best fit for you personally. And that's okay. And I'm learning that. you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, as much as I'm a people pleaser and I would love to be, but that doesn't serve anybody, to cater to everybody. And so that does mean looking at my calendar. And even though I'm seeing that weekend's open, I might have to say no, because I've got, every weekend, 4 weeks back and 4 weeks ahead booked. That means I have to do that, because chances are, I'll say that that's my off weekend, but I'll probably sit at home and edit in my pajamas. And even though that's work, it's still being productive, and it's still like a weekend off for me.
Yeah.
So I'm a workaholic too, but it does mean saying no to things, and it is hard. We're in the process of buying a house, and I told myself that doesn't mean I'm going to say yes to everything just because we're making a big financial purchase and, we're making a change. I want to have time. I still want to have that time in my schedule to decorate and to move in and to do all these different things. So I'm constantly having to remind myself, you're going to want time for this, take time for this. I've done the years that I've worked through Christmas. I've worked Christmas Eve. I've worked the day after. I've worked Thanksgiving and all that. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to have that time to spend with my family and with my husband and just to be, So speaking of success, I've learned that initially my success was a financial goal, and it still has a lot of financial, implications and rewards, but just having some time freedom is everything to me. So
yeah. So you might have already answered it, but I've heard you talk about your husband and your family and being able to have time and that kind of stuff. What does success look like for you, whether you have it now or what it looks like in the future? How would you define success?
So success to me is, like I said, it was a financial thing, and it still is. I would love to be financially stable enough to still be able to take weekends off and to have my schedule, and one day to have children and to be able to stay at home with them during the day and then go to my evening shoots and shoot on the weekend. So I'm kind of redefining that success model, because those kind of things are now on the forefront, and I'm trying to think, okay, how can I be a successful, not just a successful businesswoman, but a successful wife, a successful mother someday. And so that time freedom piece is really important. And that doesn't mean I'm off, every day and I just get to sit back and sit on the couch by any means. That would drive me crazy. It does mean that I'm not working myself to the bone. I'm not working every single day. I'm being more strategic about the hours. And when I am working, I'm all in and plugged in. And then whenever I'm not working, I'm all in and plugged into my family or whatever it is that I'm doing. And so, like I said, getting married kind of inspired me to put some more boundaries in around my business after 9-10 years of not really having any boundaries. And so it has been hard. And, it's hard to say no to clients that you have been over backwards for years. And then they want to do, like I said, a Thanksgiving shoot and to have to, I'm sorry, but no, I'm spending that time with my family this year, or I'm sorry, I'm going to be on my honeymoon that time, or I'm going to be doing this, that, the other. And so I've learned that the times that I have said no, I'm so thankful to myself. And the times that I've said yes when I really wanted to say no, I get so mad at myself. And so doing that a couple times makes you learn, yes, I'm saying no to this. And yes, that might be a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 sometimes when it's weddings or bigger events. But saying no to that means that I could say yes to something else. And I have, doing it a couple times shows you I can do this and it is worth it. And, so I try to remind myself that, especially as I'm getting into busy season where it's easy to take on too much.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, what you learn whenever you say no is that, hey, it didn't all come crashing down. You said no, and it still is up and running. You're still doing it. And that is something that I'm still teaching myself, even with taking time off. It's like, hey, it's not going to crash to the ground just because you take a couple of days or even like a full week off. It's still going to be there and everything's going to be fine. But on the flip side of the question around success, what is a misconception that you've heard about success growing up that you wish you would have known earlier? Like for example, like you mentioned money, like success is the way that you appear to people because you have all this money, or it looks like you have money. So what is a misconception that you've heard of, or that you want to tell people that it is a misconception,
so
at least in
parents,
your mind?
You know, they've worked in the same field and had the same jobs for 30 plus years. So, you know, when I got my corporate job right out of school, they were like, great, you can get plugged in with this company and you can retire from there. And I was like, that doesn't sound appealing to me, to be, you know, to be the same company for that amount of time. And so that was a little scary. That's a big commitment when you're 21 years old and, you know, to think, oh, I'm stuck here until I retire, even though I loved it, you know. So it was really hard, even for my family who knew that I was, you know, running a successful business on the side. It was hard for them when I told them, you know, I'm thinking about doing this full time. The first question is, what about your benefits? What about this? What about that? Luckily, I married into some benefits, but there were like 3 solid years that I was providing benefits on my own, and it was fine. You know, it didn't break the bank. I had health insurance and business insurance all on my own, and it was just fine. So I think a lot of people are afraid. They're afraid to take the plunge because of retirement. Well, I have my own retirement. I have a financial advisor that I meet with every quarter to make sure that I'm on track, to make sure that, you know, my retirement is taken care of, because I work a very physical job. You know, I'm probably not going to be 65 years old, you know, shooting weddings. No one would want me to do that anyways. It's physically contending. So, you know, as long as you're willing to pour into your retirement, your benefits, it might take a little bit of extra legwork. You might have to call around and price out different options. But those benefits, those traditional benefits that you hear about, that's what everyone asked me about whenever I quit my job. And I was like, you know what? I still think that it's worth it. And I look at it now and think, if that's what would have held me back was the health insurance or the retirement, which like I said, I was able to do on my own for just as good, if not better, than I was in the corporate marketplace, then, you know, if I let that hold me back, I would be missing out on so much. So, you know, do your research, but it's going to be okay. If you have a passion for that and you're willing to stay organized in your business, you can still be successful and have benefits and work for yourself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people use certain things like that as an excuse. No disrespect to your parents, but like anybody, for like looking at their children, they want them to be successful. They want to make sure that they're taken care of. But really, it is an excuse in a sense that holds you back. And it might be, and I'm kind of talking to myself, it might be because if you do take this risk, you could fail, you know. But what is on the other side of failure? You know, failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. So like even if you try and you fail, you come out smarter than when you started. So yeah, and like I said, I'm talking to myself because I have some big risks that I've been on the border of right now. But then the other thing you mentioned, your parents have been in their I don't know if you said corporate, but corporate positions for over 30 years. My mom has been the same way. But I recently saw a study where it said the employee who stays at a company for longer than 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, they're going to see incremental raises around anywhere from 2 to 5% each year. But if you actually a job hop or you do your own thing, you're actually going to see a 10 to 20% raise. So the misconception is great, and it stands true, at least with that study, because if you stay there, and if we're talking about money, but if you stay there, then you're kind of limiting yourself then taking that risk, whether it's going to another position or another company or starting your own business. So there is some things on the other side.
Absolutely.
You just got to take that.
It's easy to
leap.
get comfortable and complacent and think, you know, well, I'm happy here and I'm happy doing this, because I think all the time about, well, what if I would have just stayed in my corporate job? I'm sure I would be happy, but I'd also probably be laid off at this point.
Yeah.
You know, COVID filled it up then
Oh, that's
we laid
true.
a lot of people off, and a lot of people got furloughed, and it's crazy, you know, my business that was such a big risk, it was pandemic proof, and that was really reassuring to me, to especially now to be on the other side of it, to be like, wow, we survived that, and we're okay during that. I didn't have to worry about being laid off.
Yeah.
I got to choose what work I was taking on and what work I didn't, even, when weddings and things weren't happening. I was able to pivot. So that was cool to see. And it goes to show that some of those safe jobs aren't always safe. And, the risk can be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that you got to run pretty soon. But you mentioned at like 65, you don't expect to kind of be doing photography. What is your goal with your business right now? Is it to expand and bring other people on?
That's a good question.
What does that look like
I've been asked that for years, because it's always that, like, what's next? And it's hard for me to think about because I'm a control freak. So I like everything to be, like I said, my mom and my husband are like my employees, and I like to keep everything in-house.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of all the different ways I can expand. And a lot of other photographers will do, education, and that's not my passion as of now. I just love shooting and, love doing that kind of thing. Yeah. We're kind of entertaining the video portion of it that I have said no to forever. Now that my husband's kind of on board in this business with me, he has an eye for that and a knack for that, and I'd love to be able to build that out with him. So we've taken on just a couple small video things. We're nowhere near, wedding videography or anything yet, but kind of looking at the places that we can expand that make us excited and make sense for us. So if education doesn't make me excited right now, okay, well, video does. And can we take on this? Can we do that? So just little ways to expand, always looking for ways to, take on less, but give more quality. So that work smarter, not harder mentality. And what that looks like, I don't exactly know. So I'm always brainstorming on it and thinking on it and feeling out different things. And if I don't feel led there, then I'll close that off. And, maybe I will feel led to do the education piece someday whenever I'm, wanting to just stay at home. But for now, it energizes me to go out to my shoots. And so I don't have any plans to add on other team members, but I do really want to build out the portion, with my husband and kind of get him more involved in it too. And I think that would be, awesome. So I'm excited to see where that takes us.
That would be cool. I know I've seen some of his videos and I like them. Was he the one that did the confetti shooter, or was that you?
That you're talking about from your wedding, that was him that did that. And he was on the other side of the room, and confetti's in the air, and he was like trying to flag me down and showed me the back of his camera, and I was like, it's so good. So that made me excited.
That's cool.
As a single person, that was one of the things on my list. I'm like, man, I want somebody who's at least intrigued by my business. And I never dreamed that. I mean, he comes along with me to a lot of weddings, and he gets really excited about it too. So that makes me really happy to see. He's kind of my protege right now.
Yeah, and you guys are awesome because you make it feel comfortable. Like, you guys have, like, the people that you work with, at least this is how I experienced it, is you make it feel like we've known you forever. And then the photos show that too. So, but I know you got to wrap up. So where can people find you if they want to reach out to you for
photography? So my
photography?
website is www.brookelynriley.com. So you can reach out there. I have a contact form on there. I'm on all the things social media. So Brookelyn Riley Photography on Facebook, at Brookelyn Riley Photo on Instagram. I probably spend the most amount of my time there. And I'm starting to kind of build out the TikTok piece too. And I'm at Brookelyn Riley on there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We might have to do a part two. We'll see.
This was so fun. I'm always down to like talk shop, business, happiness, success, all of that stuff is right in my wheelhouse. So thank you.
All right. Well, we'll cue the outro now.